Ever learned something that made you go, how the heck did humans figure that out? If so, what is your prime example of that? Do you know how much work it takes to make chocolate edible? Same with olives. Lots of work. Very determined people. Some nuts too. Hey, Greg ate that stuff. Did he die? Yeep, foaming Sue. We waited mature a little bit more? Almonds. These almonds will kill you. These identical looking almonds won't. Choose wisely. The MF that first tried cheese was a brave man. That MF may have been the first MF to try wine as well. It was literally the luckiest day of his or any of his generation's life. Aw man, my grapes went bad. And they've got mold or something on them. Well, it's not like I'm eating anything else today. Hey Crunk, we found some new grapes. We aren't gonna starve. Let me tell you a thing or two about these grapes. The fugu pufferfish contains the world's most powerful neurotoxin, but if you cut that sucker just right, you get tasty fish that sells for $100 a plate. And the best chefs will be able to taint the meat with just enough tetrodotoxin to give the diner a vague sense of tingling, but not die. Since 1958, fugu chefs must earn a license to prepare and sell fugu to the public. This involves a 2 or 3 year apprenticeship. The licensing examination process consists of a written test, a fish identification test, and a practical test, which requires the test takers to prepare a dish of fugu and then eating it. Only about 35% of the applicants pass. Small miscalculations result in failure or, in rare cases, death. I only know about this dish due to that Simpsons episode. Me too. Poison, poison, tasty fish. Just learned today on this very sub that the gimpy gimpy, also known as the suicide plant for very fitting reasons, has edible fruits as long as the toxic hairs are all pulled out. Cameras, that shit blows my mind. Right. Like let me look through some glass, press a button, then boom, an image of what I saw is captured. Your eyes work the same as a camera. When your iris opens, it brings light into it, and your brain processes it into what you currently see. A camera also does this. It takes the light inside of it, processes it, and voila, you got a picture. I read about this fact when I was trying to figure out how flash bangs work. When a flash bang goes off, a lot of light comes out of it that stuns you for like 10 seconds. But those 10 seconds feels like 1 minute. You see nothing. Everything is white and you feel like you are waiting for a long time until it is all over. Turns out, the light that comes from the flashbang through our eyes is so much light that the brain has actual trouble processing it, resulting in a temporary stun. I mean, it's one thing to figure out exactly how the human eye works, but to then build a mechanical one blows my fucking mind. Imaginary numbers and math. Spoken language in general. If I utter a lot of noises in a very specific order, you understand my thoughts. I understand evolution, both social and biological, but it still blows my mind. Yeah, I always wonder how certain words came into existence. Like when languages started developing, every time when someone saw something new you just make up a word. IRC, you start with individual words for very basic, survival things. Water, food, danger, animal, etc. Then maybe you get animal food, which is meat. Or maybe you get danger tooth animal, for wolf, then danger tooth animal meat, for wolf meat. A lot of these early words would have come about. Combine that with the fact that people are lazy. Words contract over time, sounds change, words slip. Language is literally word of mouth, and we've only very recently had the organization to standardize it properly. The first dictionary happened 160 years after the printing press. And even around then, regional dialects were written as well as spoken. Consider that modern apes can be taught meaningful sign and icon languages, and wild monkeys have different types of calls for different animals. These adaptations and evolutions happen over millions of years until we get a complex, spoken, grammatical language. And during this time, people are moving and dying and finding new things they need names for. Meanings change. Vowels shift. Languages split and merge and evolve. These days, of course, we have words for damn near everything. Even things we don't have names for, we can create one, define it, and distribute it at damn near light speed. Most of these terms are scientific these days, like quasar and parasocial, but it does still happen, mostly by compounding and contraction. Calculating the weight of another planet. My dumbass just can't comprehend the mathematics that go into working that out. Basically, you figure out the average density of the planet, calculate its volume, do some math, and voila. Slight correction, but it's the mass of the planet rather than weight. Milk cheese. Humans were pretty much all lactose intolerant for a long time. Only babies could really drink milk because of feeding. So at some point, people just said fuck it, and brute forced milk into adult diets. Created cheese and ate so much that a significant portion of the world can now drink it as adults. Even modern lactose intolerant people just do not give a fuck and still drink milk and cheese products. We can't figure out climate change, but goddamn we can suck on a cow's tit. You make it sound like they just consumed so much of it they became immune. That's not really how that works. Some people just kept their enzyme beyond babyhood because of a genetic mutation. And because they were able to digest that extra source of calories, the people with these mutations survived and procreated more successfully. So over time the mutation spread. No brute force or fuck it was involved. Some people just got luckier than others. Oysters. They look like rocks on the outside and snot on the inside. Who was the first fool to open and eat that? Someone that watched a bird do it. And was very hungry. Amazingly, he discovered something delicious. He ate such food later in the year and then died. Transistors. It's changed the world, and yet it's unthinkable how humans figured something like that out. According to my old lecturer, transistors were something that were actually implied to exist by maths first, so they went about trying to make them because the maths said they should exist. Reverse engineering of crashed UFOs. Yes, but how did the aliens come up with it? Reverse engineering of crashed UFOs. So plants that are normally poisonous or just injure humans in general? Who was like, dang, that thing looks kinda tasty, I might have to eat that. What gets me are the plants that are poisonous until you boil them 3 or 4 times, changing the water each time. Like, how do you get to attempt number 4 at cooking the same pot of greens after the first 3 attempts poisoned your family? Hunger, I know, but I still think I would have given up by then. Try Japanese cycads. It makes an awesome flour, but you have to repeatedly wash it and dry it for a whole month. Otherwise, it causes liver failure. Or it only works if you use a copper pot. Which drugs to do? Trial and error. There's actually quite a lot of drugs that the exact mechanism of action is unknown. They are just consistent with desired effects, so we're like, fuck it, and prescribe it. Honey. Imagine asking yourself, what do this little stingy insects hiding from me? It must taste good. Just follow the honey badger. Or the bear. Laser eye surgery. I mean, some people must have gone blind. The first eye surgery was some guy cutting people's corneas out, taking them home, reshaping them on a mini lathe, then going back to the hospital and reattaching them. If you're going from that to using lasers to do the same cutting, you just have to get the laser at the right power to not burn too much cornea away, which you could do with a similar material, or bodies donated for medical science. I'd much rather be laser beamed than have some guy drop my cornea on the floor in his shed. Also, and do not read this if you want to be happy today, people have been performing eye surgeries for centuries, which obviously means many patients endured them without any anesthesia. Weaving with a loom has always been fascinating to me. They date back to 5000 BC. Bread. How someone thought to get wheat and other stuff and then bake it. That and beer. I think someone forgot about some dough, and it rose from the natural yeast. Well, fairly certain that's what I watched in a Netflix document. The one that was about food and air, fire, water and something else, likely fermentation. That you're reading this after I zapped it out of my thoughts through my fingers, past the keyboard, under the wire, and out your display at light speed into your thoughts. Everything that made this moment possible. Sailing upwind. Sailing with the wind is one thing, but how did they ever figure out how to design a boat capable of sailing upwind is beyond me. I understand the physics of why it works, however it still baffles me that humans figured that out as early as they did. Boats can't sail directly into the wind, but they can tack into it. Triangular sails act more like airplane wings. Square sails mostly act more like parachutes blown by the wind, but they can still tack, just not at such an angle as triangular sailed ships. I looked it up years ago after playing Sid Meier's Pirates. Tapioca pudding. Raw cassava is poisonous, cyanide, but if you peel it and grind it down, it makes tapioca pudding. So how did that happen? How did a person figure out that after cooking it was okay? So maybe some tribe was starving and sitting by a fire, and a cassava tuber fell in the fire, and after it cooked they said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna peel it and eat it." A mystery to me. Any recipe that calls for a pinch of another ingredient. I mean, will the whole pot be ruined if you don't add that pinch? Bay leaf. Too much can ruin a huge pot of chicken soup, at least in my opinion. I will never understand computers. How the fuck is it even possibly to lightning charge a rock and make it think? Pretty much anything relating to nuclear physics, power, weapons, etc. Also, Muslim scholars performing cataract surgery and mapping the human anatomy in ways that would make Da Vinci shit a brick. More bizarre that they figured these things out about 1,000 years ago. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.